Hi, good evening. I'm Edmund Chang. I'm one of the lecturers at Making Up the Modern World program. I have the great pleasure to introduce our next pair of speakers. I want to begin by introducing Pari Iramanesh. She will be helping with the question and answer session. Pari Iramanesh is an experienced teacher of Persian language and culture. With her extensive expertise in Persian literature and philosophy, Ms. Iramanesh has been instrumental cultural ambassador and teacher of Persian culture all around the world, in places as disparate as Sarajevo, Bosnia, and Irvine, California. A PhD candidate in Iranian studies at UCLA with a keen interest in Sufi mysticism, Ms. Iramanesh has also studied in Pakistan and Iran. She is currently an instructor at UC Irvine, as well as an important representative for the Nimatullahi Sufi order in Southern California. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Secondly, I would like to introduce Amir Sardari. Mr. Sardari has been actively pursuing the Sufi path over the past 15 years, studying the works of Sufi mystics and poets such as Attar, Rumi, Hafiz, and Shah Nimatullah. Along with his study of Sufism, Mr. Sardari has also explored the history and theology of other Persian traditions, such as Mithraism, Zoroastrianism, and Manichaean thought. Mr. Sardari holds a bachelor's degree in engineering from UC Berkeley and an MBA from the University of San Francisco, with 3 patents in the field of energy and energy regeneration. He's currently the president of Energy and Environment Incorporated. So welcome.
Well, good evening to everybody. This is a great opportunity, and more than anything else, I'd like to also congratulate UCSD for setting up this program. I think this is wonderful, and this is a time that is pretty well needed. I'm also delighted to see all the other speakers and benefit and hear from everybody else. In addressing this, some of the questions that was pretty nicely posed, and every one of them were very instrumental questions, I thought I'd start with a little bit of the introduction. Especially I come in as a Sufi and as a Muslim. And I thought, let me establish the definition because a lot comes around. By definition, Muslim means submission. And submission to the will of God, meaning one puts himself a little behind. And normally I go to the original text, not people's interpretation. And in the text of it is, which is Quran, is full of statements of calling all the previous prophets that were listed in the Old Testament as Noah, Joseph, Moses, Jesus, and actually also recognition of the doctrine of Immaculate Conception, and calls all of them Abraham, and calls all of them are Muslims. And it meant that it was never intended to be an ideological label put on a dogmatic box and be locked up. And in that book also, there are many proclamations or statements, which in Quran they call them surah, that it speaks more than anything else. Repeatedly, actually it causes God to have the best attributes, over 1,001 attributes. Those are the most compassionate, the most merciful, the giver, the cover of our secrets. Everybody has a lot of secrets. And as a good person, you're supposed to hold people's secrets too, not reveal them. And God is the ultimate cover of all of the secrets, and the forgiver of all, the fastest forgiver of all. And more than anything, it's always started. In fact, that's why every time they start, it's always in the name of the God, the merciful, the compassionate. So a good person or a good Muslim is supposed to try to follow those ways. And the emphasis, of course, is that forgiveness is a part of it, as specifically understood is that God loves those who forgive and never be unjust. So this was as a background of that. Now, what is Sufism and who is a Sufi? Sufism is a school of thought, self-actualization of the divine presence. And in that move, this is a journey for everybody. Everybody has that experience for themselves. And it's a wonderful experience. And I will go further to describe it a little bit, but where does the word come from? There's a lot of definitions, but basically it comes into two types of thought. One is that it comes from the word Sophia, which is a Greek name for wisdom. It's a higher wisdom. So actually when you have philosopher, it's the philosophia, the one who likes wisdom. And it wasn't the one who argues. That was never intended in that. And therefore, the Sufism falls about that. And there are also those who said that it comes from the word Suf in Arabic, which means world, and it meant to the group of the very close followers of Prophet Muhammad, who were sitting close to him, and they were very simple people, putting everything else behind. And there's tons of other ones, but basically falls around these paths. But a seeker one time comes and asks a sage for a guidance on the way of Sufi. And the old man says, well, have you ever been in love? The guy says, no. He says, well, go away. Fall in love. And then come back later on and ask me the question. As this is an essential portion. In traveling on the path of the Sufi, the intention is to see the truth. And the truth comes by a self-realization. And it's a unique experience. However, one in the Sufis thinking, you cannot realize that truth by first purifying yourself. You cleanse your heart. In fact, you cannot go and contemplate being angry. You have to get rid of all this behind you. Rumi has a beautiful poetry. I won't take the entire for you, but it says you have to cleanse your heart 7 times before you allow. Then it would allow you to see that it clears enough that then the light will illuminate in your heart. And then you begin to feel, and then you begin to really be qualified to the love to come in. As there is no room in that heart for multiplicity or duality. The journey, it is said, it does start with the grace. Those who go for it, they may not know it, but there has been a grace upon them to come into that path. Anybody who goes and does something good, they always say, well, thank you that I was able to do it, because there was somebody who wanted me to do that. And so the journey starts with a grace, and then it further becomes a guidance. And everybody has in their heart that light to see it. All of us, anybody in any part of the world, whenever they do something wrong, they do it. It doesn't need anybody to tell them. And when they do something good, they do it. Now they can try to justify it. So what does it matter? The relationship between the Sufi and God is love. Nothing else. In fact, Rumi has a beautiful poetry in the early part of the book that says it is love that is the compass. Actually, he uses the word starlight. Well, starlight was a device that was built in ancient Persia that was setting up, you could locate all the stars. And so the word was that the love is the starlight to find or to reach God, or the path of God. No other path. Now, we start to get to the questions that Professor Chang had posed in front of all of us. And there was that, how does one find time and space for contemplation? I mean, it is important about contemplation. Well, Let me start with a statement from Aristotle. The ultimate value of life depends upon awareness and the power of contemplation rather than upon mere survival. And by the way, a lot of times people may think that we're all pretty smart in the 21st century, but actually if you open up the books and read Plato, Pythagoras, Aristotle, it would amaze you that how wonderfully they have been discussing some of the most elemental questions that we are asking, and sometimes in much more detail. And part of Aristotle, of course, that time was about the mind has a contemplative part, and the contemplative part is the part that, intellect part that you reach God. Of course, he wouldn't use the terminology God, but later on it was taken in. In the ideology, the path of the Sufi, there is an emphasis. Everybody, life is the greatest gift that God has presented. This is nothing to be wasted, and one has to recognize. If somebody gives you a gift and you like it, if somebody very respectful gives you that gift, you highly respect it. But if you have the ultimate respectful being in the universe gives you a gift, what do you do with that? You really respect that. Everybody is absolutely precious. Ghazali, who is one of the philosophers of about 9th, 10th century, says, "Know, O beloved, that man was not created in a jest at random, but marvelously made and for some great end." The emphasis is, and let me make you to think about 2,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, about 1,200 years ago. The emphasis was being made that everybody is an absolute valuable person. We're talking about the time that there was ultimate dictatorship of savageries, and there was pre-feudalistic eras, and in every passage, and the monarchs of all sorts, everybody was ruling, from pre-Christianity, Romans and the gladiators, savageries, or anyone else. And from thereafter, after the replacement of the religion, still there was the emphasis of the Sufism and all the mystics was the value of each individual. And now, of course, we're talking about it a lot more. But the emphasis is every one of you know that you're all jewels. Every one of you know that you're a precious pearl. Actually, there's a poem on money. It's about the poem, and don't throw that pearl to the pit. That phrase was, I forgot to recite it, was somewhere in the Bible also was used. It became a metaphor for that you recognized it, and when you recognize it, you're not going to put it to waste. You have the highest value for that. So if that is the case, then what does contemplation becomes? Contemplation becomes a way, a source of nourishing our soul. We need to nourish our bodies no matter what we do. We also need to nourish our souls. We have to kind of slow down. You don't eat while running, really, unless it's absolute emergency vital behavior. So, and the soul is the same way. It does need to calm down and then start to nourish that. And we have junk foods, and we have junk foods, of course, for the soul too. So I'm not going to get into the junk food discussion. But there is a statement from Schiller, the German poet, what a man takes in contemplation, he pours out in love. Now, for everybody, this is a different experience, and it should be. It can be search of his space. It can be a moment of quietness. It can be achieved in a corner of a room, sitting on a rock or on the beach, under a tree, on the grass, or in a house of worship, wherever. Actually, you are the master. You can pick it up and you can choose. The intent of it is the awareness. And it is to be aware and aware of the universe and feel every step of it. I'm going to be fast in the poem by Rumi on the moment of appreciation is that it says, every instant in the world is being renewed and we are unaware of its perpetual change. Life is ever pouring afresh through the body. It has a semblance of continuity. From its sweetness, it appears continuous like a spark, though worlds by thy hand. The metaphor to it is if you look at a river, it's always in the move, but it's always changing. When you look at it, it's a still river. Life is like that too. Even though we feel that it is there, it's constantly, the blessings are being poured out. I'm going to kind of stop to that, but because of my time. But and the brief one is, by Rumi again, I'll run into for you is avoid entangled thoughts that you may see the explanation of paradise. Refrain from speaking that you may win speech hereafter, and abandon life of the world that you may behold life and world. So I will be available with Mr. Ron and actually come for anybody who has questions.
Good evening. I'm Jackie Giordano. I'm one of the academic coordinators for the Open Water World Program. And I'm glad to see so many of you here this evening. It is my great pleasure to introduce Paula Fitzgerald. Paula is a devotee of Paramahansa Yogananda, who is the founder of Self-Realization Fellowship, a worldwide organization that blends original Christianity and original yoga with meditation. Paula wants you to know she's not here as an official spokesperson for the organization, but she came here tonight to share with you how she meets the challenge of incorporating contemplative practices into daily living. Paula came to her spiritual path at the age of 10, and she considers her daily meditation her lifeline. Professionally, she's a writer and an editor, and she lives in North County with her husband and her 2 sons. Paula, we would love to hear from you.
Good evening. I just want to tell you I woke up yesterday with this huge lump in my throat and blew into a cold. And I thought this is a perfect example of one of the obstacles that happens on the contemplative path, the common cold. So bear with me here. What I want to do is give you a little bit of background on the Self-Realization Fellowship, and then talk to you about my own personal experience trying to incorporate contemplative practices with a family and a career and all the busyness of the 21st century. In terms of background on SRF, I'm going to refer to Self-Realization Fellowship as SRF, the acronym. For those of you who don't know, Self-Realization Fellowship was founded by Paramahansa Yogananda in 1920. He was a yogi from India, and he was born in Bengal in 1893. From the time that he was very young, it was quite evident to those around him of his acute awareness of the spiritual, and it was very beyond the ordinary. In his youth, he searched for a guru. He met many sages and saints until he found his own guru, Sri Fitzgerald, and he took his vows as a monk of the Swami order. And then it was in 1920 that he was invited to come to Boston as an Indian delegate to a religious conference, and he arrived. He didn't speak any English, but managed to give a very articulate talk on the science of religion, and it was very, very well received. And he toured, and then in 1924 he established the headquarters of Self-Realization Fellowship in Los Angeles. And today there are many temples and ashrams worldwide. The closest one to us is in Encinitas, and they have a beautiful meditation garden up there. It's open to the public. If you haven't visited, I urge you to. You don't have to go in and meditate. You can just go in and enjoy the view and the peace. He called it Self-Realization Fellowship, and, well, for a very good reason. When he says self, it's capital S, not because it's just because it's a proper noun, but because it refers to the divinity within you. It's about realizing your own inner divinity and God within you. He strongly emphasized the underlying commonality between all religions. He said all true religions lead to God, and it's true. I mean, if you analyze a lot of them, it's all about loving God and loving one another. And also in our own prayers in the church, you know. Well, for example, let me back up a little bit. If you were to walk into Manessa Temple, you would see 6 images of the altar. You would see the first guru in this line, which is Mahavatar Babaji. He passed along these ancient scientific meditation techniques to his disciple, Lahiri Mahashai, who you would also see a picture of. Lahiri Mahashai passed on these techniques to the 3rd guru in line, which was Sri Teshwar, who then passed them on to Yogananda, who was the last in the line. You would also see a picture of Jesus Christ and Krishna. And this is because Yogananda recognized that they were great avatars, great teachers. He also wrote copious translations on the Bhagavad Gita and the Bible. He is credited for bringing yoga to the West, and his book, which I brought, How Do I Ever Give Yoga, which some of you might be familiar with. This is a spiritual classic. It's been in continual publication since 1946. Yogananda passed from his body on March 7, 1952, and he did that through what's called Mahasamadhi, which is a conscious exiting of the body that yogis can do. And what he did, he was at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles, and he just finished giving a lecture and returned, sat down in meditation posture, and was gone. So to be a student of Self-Realization Fellowship is really to embrace a whole way of life. It's a philosophy. The cornerstone of the teachings is meditation. And when I say meditation, I'm talking about concentration on God exclusively. And that's even what I mean by contemplation, although certainly contemplation can be studying his writings as well. So meditation is key, and the reason it's key is because that is what we use to develop a direct personal relationship with God. And we believe that that is really the purpose of life. It's the highest purpose of all. And I can just speak from my own experience that when you meditate deeply and you experience this peace and this love, it's the most amazing thing. I can't even really find words for it. But it opens you up to a whole other reality, and suddenly all the incredible things of the worldly desires don't mean as much. And you actually look forward to contemplation. You want to do it. You want to feel that. And peace is not a commodity. You cannot buy it or sell it. It has to be cultivated from within. And the beauty of it is that you don't need to smoke, or inhale anything. Among the benefits of meditation, there's many, but one of the keys is that it expands your consciousness, which is what's needed in order to pursue God. And many religions, of course, emphasize knowing God. But one thing that SRF offers are scientific meditation techniques that have been carried down from these gurus. And they are very effective. I'll talk a little bit more about them in the end. And then another important component is service to mankind. No one will tell you to run off with the lions and meditate in a cave all day, no matter how appealing that might sound. Service in all kinds of ways is very important. And I think my path, what I really appreciate about it is that it offers a very good balance between the interior life, the contemplative life, and the exterior life as well. So how do we incorporate contemplation into daily life? Most SRF devotees meditate twice a day, in the morning first thing, in the evening. I can tell you that does not always happen for me in the first thing in the morning or last thing at night. I do it twice a day. And if I'm having a crazy week, craziness for the kids or whatever, I do it when I can, but I make sure I do it twice a day. And usually it's preceded by some exercises, special scientific exercises that you're going to develop to help you harness the energy inwardly and to focus more. What I have found, and one of the challenges of a routine of meditating twice a day, is not to let it become rote. Don't let it become, okay, I just did this technique, check it out, kind of thing. You want to yearn for God, and that is something that you can really develop. Even if you say, well, if you think of God as somebody in the corner of the universe, you can actually create that yearning for Him through contemplation and meditation. Another component of the contemplation is usually having at least one long meditation per week. And often we do this in groups. Each temple offers a lot of opportunities for meditation, anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. And then several times a year we have long meditations, 8-hour meditations, such as we do in December or to mark the birth of Christ. The other key element is to practice the presence of God throughout the day. This can be a simple mantra, I love you, or, be with me. It's sort of like having an internal conversation and keep that awareness there all the time. Now the obstacles, I would be lying to you if I said I was a bliss bunny 24/7. I am not. You can ask my kids. My biggest obstacle is my own mind, especially turning off the chatter inside my head, the reel of the day, all the images, and what's going to happen tomorrow, what somebody said. And that's where the scientific meditation techniques are very effective. And a lot of that is channeling the energy inward. It's watching the breath. It's bringing the energy into the spine. But they're very, very effective and help you go much deeper. Another obstacle is time. It's very easy to rationalize away not doing it. Sometimes I don't get to bed until close to midnight and I haven't meditated yet. And unfortunately, I have to pass my altar before I get to my bed. So there's like this little reminder for me. But, another obstacle that happens is if you go through a dry period in your meditation and prayer, and you don't feel anything. Sometimes an arrogance can set in, and you feel like, I don't really need God. I can do this on my own. This used to happen to me in the past. And then misery, in some shape or form, would descend, and I would come back to my altar on all fours. And I am grateful for all those tests, those difficulties, because they pushed me back to where I needed to be, which was developing a relationship with God. Sometimes the obstacle is losing the balance between the interior and exterior. You get too pulled into your work, you get too pulled into the party scene, and God starts to become abstract and not so important. And you have to, again, recognize what's happening and pull yourself through that. And I think another really important thing from my perspective is to eliminate the distractions. Those things that don't serve you. I used to be a journalist, and I was like a headline junkie, constantly, checking CNN or MSN or whatever it was. And my work now requires me sometimes to be up late at night because our printing's done overseas, so I'm emailing. And it's really easy for me to check headlines, but I have to be really disciplined about it because I know they're going to upset me. I'm going to get wrapped up into it, and then it's going to affect my meditation. So, little things like that, figure out what to do and what not to do. And I think that following any spiritual path requires discipline, it requires determination, it requires practice. You have to stick with it. And as I mentioned, the scientific meditation techniques are very, very key. Most of them you can get through what's called How-to lessons. And these are lessons that Yogananda wrote 3 years' worth, and they cover a myriad of topics from what technique to how to find the purpose in life to meditation techniques. And 2 of them are available in that. And then the third technique, which is the highest technique, which is called Kriya Yoga, and that you have to request for initiation into, usually a monk or nun of the separate relationship order will give that to you. And I just wanted to close with a quote from Yogananda, and it's from the book called Inner Peace. And he writes, "Ask yourself, what is the purpose of your life? You have been made in the image of God. That is your real self. Realizing the image of God within you is the ultimate success. Infinite joy, fulfillment of every desire, victory over all difficulties of the body,